Forearm stand, Pincha Mayurasana, feathered peacock pose. Our forearm stand inversion is actually a really incredibly difficult inversion, even though our base of support is greater than what we have for a handstand. Why this is because getting our arms into the correct position to set that base of support, really set that foundation. Remember, it needs to be set properly because everything flows upstream from there. If we haven't set our foundation properly, then the stacking of the rest of the body is going to be thrown off. Now, why this is so incredibly difficult for some people is because it requires the humerus to externally rotate, right? We externally rotate to get our arms set into position almost to its max. Now, for that external rotation action and getting that head of the humerus externally rotated almost to its max requires the internal rotator muscles to lengthen a lot. So if your internal rotator muscles of the shoulder are too tight, what's going to happen is the elbows are going to want to slide outward or the hands are going to want to slide inward. And we can prep this pose to try to lengthen the internal rotators of the shoulder, which if you take your big lobster claw hand and you go whoop, you're pretty much grabbing on to the internal rotators of the shoulders, including the subscapularis of the rotator cuff, the lats, the pec major, that's that big pec muscle that lies on top. To prep these muscles to be at their full lengthening capacity, I'm going to give you 3 poses you always want to do before you come into a forearm stand. The first one is Gomukhasana arms, cow face pose arms. The second one is Garudasana arms, so eagle arms. And the third one is going to be puppy pose, but using either a chair or your blocks, placing your elbows down, forehead down, bending the elbows and placing the prayer hands at the base of the neck. So make sure that you always include those 3 preparatory poses before you attempt forearm stand, and continue to work on the lengthening capabilities of your internal rotating muscles at the shoulder. All of this to say that to set the foundation, which is our key component number 1, we need to externally rotate and drop the elbows and hold this nice, beautiful 90-degree angle foundation base of support. Now, if you aren't there yet, and you have 2 options of compensation, one, elbows flare out wide, or hands slide in, go with the hands sliding in. You can take a fist and you can take prayer hands, but continuously work towards lengthening those internal rotating muscles of the shoulder joint. Speaking of shoulder joint, this is the other thing that you have to keep in mind, that the shoulder region is complex. It is complex and it includes several different joints. They have to work in unison. They have to work in rhythm together to accomplish this goal of taking that humeral head to almost its max of external rotation, and then bringing the arms up and overhead, upside down since we're in an inversion, and holding a strong supported base of support. And when we invert, not only do we have that foundation and that grounding aspect, that support, that connection rooting down, but we also have to oppose it. We have to oppose it, and that's what lifts us into the inversion and holds us upside down. So remember, the shoulder is actually a combination of several joints. So let's talk about the scapulas next, the shoulder blades. Now, I want you to just bring your awareness to your shoulder blades. You can reach back and touch them. Those blades on your back. There's one on each side. Now see if you can't move, bring your arms up, your elbows out, and see if you can't move your shoulder blades away from the spine. And notice what happens with the elbows when you perform that action at the shoulder blades. So when we protract or abduct the shoulder blades away from the midline, away from the spine, notice how automatically your elbows want to move in, right? They move in. Now do the opposite. Draw your shoulder blades together. So they're pinching towards one another. They're moving towards the spine. They're retracting or adducting towards the spine. What happens with your elbows just very naturally when you do that? They move outward. So when we protract the shoulder blades, it's going to help us to keep our elbows in, which is what we want. We want that external rotation of the humeral head almost to its max, and we want those elbows adducting, coming in. To do that, we need the shoulder blades to abduct, protract, go out. So remember that when you're setting up and you're preparing to come into your forearm stand. To get the elbows to come in, we need the shoulder blades to move outward. So now we're kind of getting into the scapulohumeral rhythm. So right here, the ball and socket joint of the shoulder is your glenohumeral joint. The scapulas, that's your scapulothoracic region, your scapulothoracic joint. These two have to work together. It's a 2-to-1 ratio, but they have to work together to elevate the arms overhead. By protracting the scapula, remember we move them away from the spine and that helps us to bring the elbows in. The other thing that happens when we protract the scapula, abduct them, move them away from the spine, is that it helps to externally rotate the humeral head. So that's the other action we need, right, at the glenohumeral joint here. I talked about how it almost has to externally rotate almost to its max. So that protraction at the shoulder blades is going to help us to externally rotate the humeral head. It'll take some of that action out of just straight happening only at the glenohumeral joint, and it'll put some of the work back here into the scapulothoracic region. And this is going to be a much more successful and safe and stable route to get the glenohumeral joint externally rotated where we need it. And to get the elbows adducting inward so they're not flaring outward. Now pressing the hands and the forearms into the mat is also going to help us not only to fix this base of support foundational position, but you can do this, put your forearms and your palms down, press into especially this index finger mound and the palms of hands, really grip the mat with your fingertips and really press into it and feel how that actually helps you to protract the shoulder blades. As you protract the shoulder blades, that's going to help you to externally rotate the humeral head. Now, as we externally rotate the humeral head and protract the shoulder blades and press into our base of support, the index finger mount, and grip the mat with your fingertips, you're going to notice that now we can keep our elbows in position and our hands in position better. We're spreading out the work. We're having everybody come to the party. In this situation for forearm stand, it takes a village. Because like we said, this is a very small, compact space to work with. With a handstand, look at all of this space that we have to work with. Come down here, suddenly it's feeling a little cramped. Now, if you put all of the action just into one of the joints of the shoulder, remember there's several, then it becomes even more isolated and more cramped and more demanding and harder to reach those goals. So we spread out the work. We get the whole village to contribute. And we remember that how we set up for Pincha, how we get up into Pincha, things will shift and change when we're at the top. So now let's talk about the next key component. What do you do when you get to the top? First of all, let's talk about how we get up. We'll always start at the wall. And when it is difficult, when you don't have that lengthening capability, when you're still working on connecting the mind and body to several joints performing an action at the same time, we can use a couple tools. So the first one is going to be a block between the hands and really pressing into it to keep the hands where you need them to be. You can use your hands themselves, holding the block this way. You can use your forearms like this. It's about the perfect position to set our elbows up where we want them to be and our forearms where we want them to be. The other thing you can do is belt the elbows with your strap. And maybe the first thing that you'll want to do is both. This is going to help you to train your body and your mind to tell your body the positioning you're shooting for, where you want it to be. So you're going to need to put your strap on and find that right distance to hold the elbows in position. And because you have your block here too, initially, your hands aren't going to be able to slide in either. So this is training your body to set up structurally how we ultimately want it to do on its own. Like I said, it includes actions at several joints together simultaneously. So these are great tools and techniques. Consider external motivation for internal awareness, our external cueing to help guide us more internal and automatic. So this is a great way to prep and train the body. And you can start to come up into your dolphin pose and think about those actions that you want at this point in the journey, right? So at this point in the journey, the scapula need to go out, help that external rotation at the humeral head, lengthen the internal rotators. And you really want to contract the triceps. It's important to remember, or just to know, that the triceps, the long head of the tricep, originates on the scapula. So all of these things are really connected. And by contracting here, we're connecting here and getting everything to move and operate together cohesively. So start with that. Start with the belt. Start with the block. And then you're going to move your way to the wall. And then once you move your way to the wall, then you move your way back onto the mat freestanding. And we'll get there. That's going to be in our next unit when you scroll down after you finish this one. But don't bypass this information. It's really important. It's going to change the way that you forearm stand and the way that your forearm stand feels. More importantly. So, as we come up and the shoulder blades are protracting, helping that humeral head to externally rotate almost to its max, helping the internal rotators muscles to lengthen, a very strange sensation of stretching, helping the elbows to stay in and the hands to stay parallel, though this isn't a bad place to begin, okay? This just takes away all of that structural support, takes away our base of support. This is not good scaffolding. It's not a good blueprint. It's not a good way to begin. And not only that, but like I said, with that condensed amount of space, now you just brought your head even closer to the ground. We really don't want the head in the ground to have a conflict. As you come up, and we're going to start at the wall, and we'll do this down in the next tutorials, I want you to think about pulling up using the back side muscles to get up. Okay, this is that entry. That entry includes the protraction, the spreading of the shoulder blades, and then it's going to include using the muscles on the back side to pull us upward. Okay, we often only think about that hop and the jump, how we use the front of the body to get us up. So no, I don't want you to think that anymore. That's only half of the equation. This pushing away is only half. The other half is this pulling up here. We often think about it as momentum of the extended leg, and yes, it does include momentum, but let's use less swinging momentum and let's use more pulling from these strong backside muscles momentum. So that includes especially the hamstrings and the glutes. And as you keep going up, you're going to keep moving up the body and the strength of our backside. So the quadratus lumborum and the erectors are going to come in to play to start to arch us up into position. Now, when we get up into position, things change a little bit. So we've set that foundation. We've set that scaffolding and that blueprint. We've pressed into the index finger mound, the fingertips gripping the forearms. We're engaging the tricep, which the long head of the tricep connects to the scapulas. The scapulas are protracting and rounding. Engaging these triceps is going to further ground our forearms down and put our shoulders into correct position for launch. To lift up, we've engaged the backside muscles to really pull our body up into the air. We've contracted the hamstring and the glutes to pull us up. We've also engaged the quadratus lumborum of the low back and the erectors of the spine to arch our back and again get us up into position. We further set our foundation by pressing down and engaging those triceps as we lift up. We protract the shoulder blades, moving them away from the spine to have that multi-joint complexity happening, working together as a village to achieve our goals, which some are kind of unusual, right? That almost max external rotation of the humeral head, intense lengthening of the internal rotators. And then we come up into our inversion. Now, once we're up in our inversion, things have to change and adjust with the new positioning, with that full inversion. If we continue to protract the shoulder blades like this, the way we need to get our body up and overhead, we're pulling on these muscles and we have to tuck the tailbone and arch the back to come up. Now we have to adjust, because if I kept protracting, it would want to pull my body out of the inversion, and it's going to keep my shoulders shrugging up, collapsing around my ears and my neck. So what we want to do is now that we're upside down, now we found that neutral position, we want to move the shoulder blades, the scapula, towards the midline. Notice how that moves my shoulders away from my ears. Protracted here. This is launch phase. Now I'm up. I want to move my shoulder blades towards the midline. And notice the change of location of my shoulder joint, the glenohumeral, and my neck and my ears in the space. No longer shrugged, no longer scrunched. I move those shoulder blades towards the midline. And now I'm in a much better location for my inversion. We want to broaden the chest, okay? At the same time, those actions go together. Shoulder blades towards the midline, broadening of the chest. Sound effects help. And then we need to stabilize the rest of the body. Let's talk about that. So now we've set our shoulders into position. Let's go down to the pelvis. To secure the pelvis into position, we need to think about the glute minimus. The head of the femur into its socket right here. The glute minimus, stabilizing it right here. So think about hugging the sides of the hips, hugging the sides of the hips. Okay, glute minimus, securing the head of the femur into its socket. Make sure that you are internally rotating the thighs, spiraling inwards till they're in a neutral position. A neutral position means that your kneecaps will both be facing forward in the same direction. And then to keep all of this secure and stabilized, squeeze the knees together. Now you can just do it right here. Make sure that you're in a neutral position, kneecaps are aligned, and then squeeze the knees together and feel how that comes up. Now think about that glute minimus and that hugging of the side of the hips. Now I want you to move up to the psoas and the glutes, co-contract, sandwich, compress. Think about the airbag effect, rectus abdominis, nice and long and strong, and contracting to push the organs back to cushion and stabilize and protect the lumbar spine. And then we're back up to where we were in the shoulder region, where we had drawn our shoulder blades towards the midline and broadened the chest, setting everything up in such a strong and secure way. You can feel it just by doing those actions here on your knees. Squeezing, external rotation, set the foundation, move the shoulder blades towards the midline and broaden the chest. Engage the triceps and imagine you're still pressing down into your hands and your forearm, pressing down to lift up, to lengthen, to find that traction, that length, and that stabilized strength throughout the entire body. To straighten the knees, so we wouldn't be in this bent leg position anymore, you're upside down. You engage the quadriceps. So contract and engage the quadriceps to straighten the knees and lengthen all the way out the feet. Those are your key components for forearm stand, Pincha Mayurasana, feathered peacock pose.